The battle nears its final moments, and the fate of humanity rests on this last confrontation. The mighty king of all demons faces humanity's final hope. Balua Westgarden, the last savior of humankind, unveils his ultimate trump card, summoning the strongest sword in existence, a blade so powerful it can cut through planets. As both warriors unleash their final weapons, the ensuing clash is brutal. Their attacks shake the battlefield, leaving both the Demon King and Balua mortally wounded. Yet neither is willing to surrender. They push past their limits, charging at each other once more. However, before the battle can reach its conclusion, opportunistic traitors seize their chance. Seeing their ruler weakened, certain demons turn against their own king. They unleash a massive, merciless attack that engulfs both combatants. In an instant, the battle ends, with both the Demon King and Balua falling. The Demon King perishes immediately, his reign brought to an abrupt end. But Balua, though barely clinging to life, remains conscious. In his final moments, he contemplates the grim reality awaiting humanity. With both the strongest sorcerer and the mightiest sword saint gone, there will be no one left to protect the world. His vision blurs, and darkness consumes him. Nearly 1,000 years later, in a new era, the story shifts to Burrito Academy. Within its walls, a frail student suffers at the hands of bullies. A single punch sends him sprawling to the ground. The book he clutches, a text on swordsmanship, slips from his grasp. The bullies despise him, not only for his weakness but also for his defiance. He refuses to conform to the norm, stubbornly attempting to master both magic and swordsmanship. In this world, individuals dedicate their lives to one path, either the way of the sword or the way of magic. To attempt both is seen as foolish, an impossible dream. The tormentors sneer at his futile efforts, reminding him that he can barely perform beginner-level magic and that his swordsmanship is equally pathetic. They ridicule his ambition, mocking his belief that he can follow in the footsteps of the legendary magic sword saint. Despite their jeers, the boy refuses to back down. With unwavering determination, he declares that, just like the mythic hero who defied common sense, he will forge his own path. He will combine magic and swordsmanship to become a protector of others. His name is Direa Westgarden, a second-year student at Burrito Academy. But his words earn him nothing but another punch to the gut. He crumples under the blow as one of the bullies sneers at him, scoffing at his dream of emulating the magic sword saint. The bully dismisses the legend as nothing more than a myth, deriding Direa's ambition as an empty fantasy. With each mocking word, the attacks continue. The bully delivers another brutal kick, urging Direa to accept reality. Yet when Direa refuses to yield, his tormentor lays down a challenge. If Direa truly believes in his absurd theory of power beyond conventional limits, he must prove it. He must go out and hunt a monster on his own. Having issued their challenge, the trio departs, leaving Direa bruised and battered. But rather than admitting defeat, he seems strangely resolute. There is no hesitation in his gaze, only a quiet determination. He accepts the challenge, seeing it as an opportunity rather than a punishment. And so, his reckless resolve drives him beyond the academy walls, deep into the wilderness. There, he comes face to face with a monstrous beast. But when the creature towers before him, terror grips him. His body freezes. He cannot move. The monster strikes. With a single swing of its massive claws, it tears through him effortlessly. Blood spills. Pain floods his senses. As he feels his life slipping away, only one thought lingers. His unwavering desire to become the magic sword saint, to be the one who protects others. But fate has other plans. A brilliant light suddenly pierces the sky, descending from the Academy's central monument. The very one seen in the opening scene. The radiant glow engulfs Direa. In that instant, something extraordinary occurs. The light carries the soul of the legendary magic sword saint, Balua Westgarden. His essence, long dormant, is drawn into Direa's consciousness. As Balua awakens within this unfamiliar body, he immediately struggles to rise. A searing pain tears through him, and blood spills from his mouth. The wound is severe, but he quickly channels his healing magic to mend the damage. Yet something feels wrong. This body is not his. Then, he notices the towering beast before him. Its claws glisten with fresh blood. Realization strikes him swiftly. This creature is responsible for his current state. The monster makes a reckless mistake by charging straight at the mighty magic sword saint, and it pays the price. Balua effortlessly unleashes his power, frying the beast where it stands. Once the creature is dealt with, his thoughts shift to more pressing concerns. He begins to wonder what exactly happened to him and where he is now. After a long and arduous journey, he finally makes his way out of the dense forest and stumbles upon a city. His first impression is nothing short of astonishing. The place is not only vast and grand, but its streets are meticulously maintained, and the people walking around are dressed in fine, luxurious clothing. It doesn't take long for him to realize that this civilization is far more advanced than the one from his time. As he takes in the sights, pieces of the puzzle start to fall into place. From what he can gather, during his battle with the demon king Giranher, he perished alongside his enemy due to a cowardly sneak attack from the demon tribe. His failure to protect humanity had left his soul filled with deep regret, binding him to this world for an extraordinarily long time. Even in death, time had continued its relentless march forward. He wouldn't be surprised if decades had passed since that fateful moment. However, a glance at the attire of his new body provides another clue. The uniform he wears belongs to an academy. Now that he thinks about it, an academy would be the perfect place to gather information about this era. With that in mind, he decides that his first destination must be the institution from which this uniform originates. Before continuing his journey, it is important to understand the significance of this place. Burrito Academy stands as one of the largest and most prestigious institutions in the country, divided into two major departments, the Department of Magic and the Department of Swordsmanship. When Balua finally arrives at the academy, he is immediately greeted by a magnificent monument, along with a statue that catches his attention. At first, he doesn't think much of it. He simply pays his respects to the figure depicted, one who is revered as humanity's greatest hero. However, as he takes a closer look, a shocking realization dawns on him. The statue is of him. The revelations do not stop there. He soon recognizes that this very land is where his final battle took place. The academy has been built on what was once the wasteland where he and the Demon King clashed. This realization unsettles him. In his time, this land had been nothing but barren wilderness. How could it have transformed so drastically in just a few decades? As he grapples with these thoughts, he overhears a group of students chatting nearby. They casually mention that today marks exactly 1,000 years since the legendary Balua Westgarden defeated the Demon King. The number leaves him utterly stunned. His mind reels at the revelation, struggling to process the passage of an entire millennium. But before he can fully digest this, he hears something else. The students doubt whether Balua ever truly existed. They dismiss the hero as nothing more than a myth, a fabricated legend passed down through generations. Of course, humanity's greatest hero is no mere legend. He is real, standing there at that very moment, panicking beyond belief. 1,000 years have passed since his death, and yet an even more pressing question weighs on his mind. Why had he suddenly awakened after all this time? What had become of the soul of this body's original owner? Furthermore, he clearly remembers that he never actually defeated the Demon King. So what truly happened in that battle? What became of the demon tribe that had orchestrated his demise? Determined to uncover the truth, he resolves to investigate the events of the past millennium and learn what really transpired. Just as his mind races with these thoughts, a familiar voice disrupts his focus. A group of bullies, loud and obnoxious as ever, makes their presence known, returning for yet another round of torment. Since Balua does not recognize these individuals, he merely turns around and looks at them in confusion. He curiously inquires if they are speaking to him. The bullies grin, confirming that he is indeed their target. They sneer as they call him out, ridiculing him for being the only fool foolish enough to attempt mastering both magic and swordsmanship. They continue their mockery, taunting him about his supposed failure in the forest. They claim that it looks as if he ran away, unable to handle the challenge. Balua, however, has no idea what these imbeciles are talking about or why they are bothering him. Then, as if struck by a sudden revelation, the memories of this body's original owner come flooding back to him. With this newfound understanding, everything becomes clear. These pathetic lowlifes are the very ones responsible for Direa's suffering. Direa had always admired Balua, but these bullies had mercilessly mocked him for it. When Direa tried to prove himself, they had brutally beaten him down. Now that Balua has regained these memories, his expression darkens. The sudden shift in his demeanor catches the bullies off guard. They seem unnerved, but Balua strides forward with unwavering confidence, closing the distance between them. He boldly proclaims his identity, declaring that he is Direa Westgarden, a second-year student in the magic department, and that he will become the magic sword saint of this era. The bullies scoff at his words, treating them as nothing more than a ridiculous joke. Two of them charge at him, fully intent on beating him down once more. Barua, however, feels nothing but amusement at their foolishness. He raises his hand, prepared to put them in their place. He has no intention of killing them, only humiliating them. Everything else is fair game. As soon as he grips his sword, a single effortless swing sends both thugs soaring through the air like discarded trash bags. The sight before him leaves the leader of the group wide-eyed and utterly speechless. The two thugs who had just been sent flying remain sprawled on the ground, unable to muster the strength to stand back up. Meanwhile, the so-called boss of the group begins to lose his composure. His earlier arrogance vanishes, replaced by visible fear. Barua, on the other hand, is clearly irritated. This was the one who had repeatedly kicked and punched Direa. Without hesitation, he charges forward, sword in hand, and swings it with force. The impact is devastating. The thug is launched backward, his momentum only halted when he collides with the unforgiving surface of a nearby building. The force of the crash is so intense that cracks spread across the wall. Now, the once arrogant bully trembles like a frightened dog. His entire body shakes as he stares up at Barua, who looms over him with an imposing presence. The sheer weight of Barua's strength and authority is enough to make the thug shrink even further into his pitiful state. Eventually, Barua decides to spare him. He steps back, offering the thug mercy, though the reason behind this choice leaves the defeated fool in utter confusion. He cannot comprehend why he is being let off so easily when Barua has every reason, and the perfect opportunity, to exact revenge. Barua calmly explains that if Direa were in control, he would not approve of such an act. Direa had been a kind-hearted person, unwilling to resort to cruelty, no matter how justified. The thug, still shaken, barely grasps what Barua means, but one thing becomes clear: he will think twice before ever approaching Barua again. As Barua walks away, he reflects on the reality that Direa Westgarden's body now belongs to him. The thought lingers in his mind until something clicks. Westgarden is his own family name as well. That means Direa is of the same bloodline. Before he can dwell further on this realization, a bell rings through the academy grounds. The students immediately scramble, hurrying to their classes as the lunch break comes to an end. Instructors call out for everyone to move into their respective classrooms. Watching the commotion, Barua recalls how strict educational institutions could be. The life of a student is rigid and demanding, filled with endless expectations. Later, the scene shifts to the magic training grounds of Burrito Academy. A student steps forward, casting a simple lightning spell. The unimpressive ball of energy strikes a training dummy, drawing an uproarious reaction from the gathered students. They cheer as if witnessing something extraordinary. Barua, however, finds the display laughable. To his eyes, it is nothing short of ridiculous. The spell is weak, unrefined, unimpressive. If he were to be brutally honest, even children from his time, 1,000 years ago, could produce magic far superior to this. His silent criticism is interrupted by the approach of an instructor. The old man immediately begins to rant, his voice filled with irritation. He demands to know why Barua is standing there idly, acting as if he is above participating in class. The instructor still sees him as the same weak Direa he has always known. He reminds him, with barely concealed mockery, that he has never been capable of casting even beginner-level magic. The insults continue. The instructor sneers, declaring that even if Barua wished to join the training exercise, he simply couldn't, because he is nothing more than a talentless failure. Barua responds with an awkward smile, then pleasantly inquires about the instructor's own magical prowess. The old man, eager to boast, proudly announces that he can wield all intermediate-level magic and can even perform multiple advanced spells. To fully grasp the significance of this, it is necessary to understand the hierarchy of magic. The system is divided into 4 categories: beginner, intermediate, advanced, and at the pinnacle, special magic. In his past life, Barua had mastered everything up to the advanced level, making him a full-fledged magician. Hearing that this instructor, a supposed expert, can only handle intermediate magic agitates him. It confirms what he has begun to suspect. Magicians in this era have grown considerably weaker. The instructor overhears Barua's remark, and it does not sit well with him. His expression darkens, his irritation rising. However, before tensions escalate further, Barua takes the initiative. He issues a challenge, suggesting a duel between them. To ensure the challenge does not come across as arrogance, he frames it carefully. He expresses a desire to witness the instructor's Amazing. Magic firsthand, presenting the duel as a learning opportunity rather than an act of defiance. Though visibly irritated, the teacher dismisses Barua's challenge as nothing but foolishness. He proclaims that Direa is too ignorant to even grasp the vast difference in their abilities. Still, the teacher agrees to the duel, seeing it as a golden opportunity to humiliate Direa in front of everyone. With an inflated ego, the teacher makes it clear that there is no comparison between a mere runt like Direa and a magician of his own standing. As both combatants take their places in the training ground, the students watching from the sidelines are left in awe. The very idea of Direa challenging a teacher to a magic duel is beyond shocking, leaving them wide-eyed with astonishment. Brimming with confidence, the teacher asks if Direa is ready. Barua, still inhabiting this body, gives the old man the confirmation he was looking for. Seizing the initiative, the teacher decides to unleash an advanced magic spell. While chanting, he smugly remarks that he will lower the power of the spell to ensure Direa is not injured beyond what is necessary. With that, the teacher casts magic flash bullets, unleashing a barrage of shining projectiles toward Barua. Yet, Barua remains completely unshaken, standing still as if he hasn't a care in the world. With a simple flick of his hand, he effortlessly obliterates the incoming bullets, rendering them useless in an instant. The spell dissipates as though it had been nothing more than a gentle breeze. The teacher's jaw nearly hits the floor. His eyes widen in utter disbelief, unable to comprehend what he has just witnessed. His shock is so intense that even his glasses develop a noticeable crack. Meanwhile, Barua allows a smug smile to spread across his face, now fully prepared to make his move. It is his turn to attack, and he decides it is time to demonstrate the power of special-grade magic. He is certain that this display will be more than enough to silence the arrogant teacher and teach him a much-needed lesson in humility. With that decision made, Barua conjures an imposing spell. Blue flames swirl around him, gathering into a fearsome attack, azure cutdown. With a single gesture, he unleashes blades of searing fire, which slice through the air at incredible speed. The attack does not directly strike the teacher, but the sheer power emanating from it is enough to leave him frozen in place, shrinking in fear. The spectators, unable to look away, are left in complete awe. For the first time, they are witnessing special-grade magic firsthand, a level of power they had only ever heard of in legends. Their minds struggle to process what has just happened before their eyes. Barua then turns to the shaken teacher, his expression calm but firm. He informs him that, for this mere duel, he refrained from striking directly. However, he warns that if the teacher continues to look down on him, there is no guarantee that he will be able to control his magic next time. These words are more than enough to shatter whatever pride the teacher had left. Fully humbled, the teacher finally acknowledges Barua's abilities. He admits, much to his own embarrassment, that Direa Westgarden has surpassed him and formally concedes defeat. Hearing this admission sends the gathered students into an uproar. The crowd erupts in disbelief, struggling to accept that Direa, the very same student who had been mocked and underestimated, has now risen to such incredible heights. Meanwhile, Barua feels a swell of satisfaction. He knows that after this display of power, no one will ever dare to laugh at or belittle Direa again. However, his moment of triumph comes with an unintended consequence. The magic he showcased was far too extraordinary. It has made him the undeniable center of attention, and now the questions begin. The teacher, leading the charge, demands to know how Direa managed to attain such immense power overnight. As this realization dawns on Barua, he begins to feel uneasy. He has no reasonable explanation for what just happened. Anxiety builds within him as the suspicious gazes of the students and faculty remain fixed on him, pressing him for answers. In an attempt to deflect their curiosity, Barua improvises, casually claiming that he simply grasped the knack of magic all at once. However, his words do little to convince anyone. The teacher, especially, is not fooled in the slightest. From his perspective, the Direa of today is an entirely different person compared to the Direa of yesterday, in skill, in magic power, and in confidence. The transformation is far too drastic to be explained by a sudden breakthrough alone. Barua quickly realizes that he has been cornered. He has no choice but to concede at least a portion of the truth. He understands that his knowledge and mastery of magic stem from his past life. A wizard's magical ability is tied to the soul, not just the body. Such a rapid and overwhelming change would be impossible for anyone who was not, in some way, a different person altogether. For a brief moment, he even considers telling the full truth, that he is Balua Westgarden, the legendary magic sword saint reborn. However, before he can act on this thought, a voice calls out from behind him. Turning swiftly, Balua spots strange creatures approaching. It does not take him long to recognize the situation. Monsters have appeared, likely drawn by the overwhelming magical energy released in the area. He recalls that these creatures once inhabited this region, lurking in the wilds beyond civilization. Without hesitation, he raises his hand and conjures a powerful bolt of electricity. The attack strikes one of the flying monsters square in the gut, burning it to a crisp in an instant. However, the remaining monsters waste no time in retaliating. Acting quickly, Balua summons bursts of firepower, creating a defensive barrier around himself. Panic spreads like wildfire among the students. Screams echo throughout the academy grounds as they scramble to flee. Without hesitation, they retreat back into the academy walls, desperate to escape the monsters that have suddenly invaded their school. Seeing the students scatter in fear leaves Balua utterly baffled. In his time, even magicians of modest ability could have easily handled creatures of this level. Yet here, these so-called magicians appear utterly helpless, fleeing like frightened commoners. However, one figure remains steadfast beside him, the teacher. With a determined expression, the instructor declares that he will not flee. He immediately casts one of his spells, Flash Rain, illuminating the sky with a series of blinding explosions. Despite its brilliance, the attack proves utterly ineffective. The airborne monsters remain unscathed, continuing their relentless advance. Balua's concern deepens. The sheer resilience of these creatures makes them a significant threat for the weakened magicians of this era. In the distance, a young girl stands firm, channeling her magic into an ability called Fire Spear. She pours every ounce of strength into the attack, doing her best to fend off the monsters. Yet, just like the teacher's spell, her efforts prove fruitless. Even so, Balua feels a flicker of admiration for her courage. As one of the monsters dives toward her, he reacts instantly. He launches himself forward, reaching her just in time to pull her away from danger. The girl stares at him in astonishment, barely able to believe that Direa, of all people, is the one who saved her. Her amazement is evident as she watches him, unable to look away. He tells her, with unwavering confidence, that he will make sure she grows stronger and insists that she remember those words. Without wasting another moment, Balua calls forth his own version of Fire Spear. Unlike the feeble attempts he had just witnessed, his magic takes form effortlessly. Magnificent spears wreathed in intense flames materialize before him. With a single commanding gesture, he sends them soaring into the sky, aiming directly at the monstrous threats above. As soon as the spears strike their targets, the monsters begin dropping like flies. Balua watches with satisfaction, fully aware that his magic is on a completely different level compared to the magic of this era. Meanwhile, the girl stands frozen, staring in awe as even more monsters charge toward them. But Balua is more than ready. As the creatures close the distance, a crucial truth crosses his mind. When the enemy gets up close, even the most skilled magician has a brief moment of vulnerability while casting a spell. This is why the best way to counter a magician is to engage them in close combat. But such a strategy only works on ordinary magicians. And Balua is no ordinary magician. He is a magic sword saint. With his blade in hand, he launches himself forward, cutting through the monster horde with ease. His attacks are swift and precise, slicing through them as effortlessly as a knife through butter. His signature technique, Air Dance Kingstorm, leaves nothing standing in his wake. Once the battle is over, he steps back, leaving both the teacher and the girl frozen in place. They can do nothing but marvel at his sheer power. Balua, on the other hand, is simply enjoying himself. The battle had been far too easy, and the victory had come without much effort. He finds the whole situation amusing. Sometime later, Balua finds himself buried in books within the library of Burrito Academy. However, focusing proves impossible. His entire body aches with exhaustion. During the battle, he hadn't felt a thing, but now the fatigue has fully caught up with him. Moving as he did before feels almost impossible without some serious training. With that in mind, he decides to finish reading the book in front of him and begin planning a proper training regimen. Following the monster attack, the academy took the situation seriously and suspended all classes temporarily. This unexpected break provided Balua with the perfect opportunity to dive into history, hoping to uncover what had happened after his supposed death. As he pours through the history books, one fact stands out above all else. He is credited with defeating the demon king Giranher. According to the records, the magic sword saint exchanged his life to bring down the Demon King. With their ruler gone, the demons were driven to the far edges of the continent. The magic sword saint who had saved humanity became a legendary figure, celebrated for over 1,000 years. Yet something does not add up. The demon tribe that had orchestrated the deaths of both the Demon King and the hero has no presence in history. There is no mention of them attacking humanity or even leaving behind a trace of their existence. It is as if they vanished without a trace. This mystery leaves Balua perplexed, unable to make sense of what truly happened. As he puzzles over this enigma, his gaze drifts outside to the courtyard. There, he spots the same red-haired girl from before. She is practicing her magic, her expression filled with focus and determination. Eventually, he approaches her and asks if she is training. Noticing his presence, she turns to him with a smile. She explains that she is practicing her magic, as the training grounds remain off limits until the monsters are fully cleared out. She then quickly bows her head in respect, expressing her gratitude. She states that she had wanted to thank him immediately after the battle, but he had left in such a hurry that she never got the chance. She also admits that she was surprised at how strong he had become. She then confesses her own struggles. No matter how hard she tries, she always seems to fall short. She expresses her frustration, her voice laced with disappointment. Balua considers her words carefully. He suspects there is a deeper reason behind her inability to grow stronger. If she has been unable to even master beginner-level magic, it is possible that she was born with an unusually small amount of magical power. With this in mind, he instructs her to show him her hand. She hesitates but eventually complies, extending her palm toward him. Without hesitation, he places his own hand on top of hers. The moment he does, she immediately flushes red with embarrassment. Unfazed, Balua focuses his energy, reaching out to connect with her inner magic reservoir. The instant he does, his eyes widen in shock. She possesses an immense amount of mana. It is not quite on par with his own, but even in his past life, such a level of magic was an incredibly rare sight. Excitedly, he breaks it down for her. He explains that the issue is not a lack of magical power but rather an excess of it. She has far too much mana and lacks the proper control to channel it effectively. Curious, he asks for her name. This question catches the girl off guard. She looks at him, visibly bewildered. She expresses her surprise, pointing out that they are classmates and yet he does not even remember her name. Eventually, he recalls it, Saris. He tells her with complete certainty that she is capable of casting special-grade magic. He emphasizes her immense potential once again, expecting her to react with excitement. However, to his surprise, Saris does not share his enthusiasm. She merely brushes off his words, stating that it is impossible. To her, such an idea sounds completely far-fetched. She admits that she has always been told, by teachers and classmates alike, that she has no talent for magic. Those words have been drilled into her mind so often that she has come to believe them as absolute truth. At this, Balua reveals the truth. The people around Saris are simply too weak to recognize her strength. However, she refuses to believe it. She insists, once again, that she is nothing more than a failure. Balua, unfazed by her doubts, brushes aside her protests. He shows no concern for her self-doubt, instead pressing her to make a choice. He tells her plainly that she must decide whether she wants to become strong or remain weak. He makes it clear that her decision will determine how he helps her from this point forward. Saris hesitates for a moment, but after a deep breath, she finally admits that she wants to become strong. Her determination draws a rare smile from Balua. For the first time, he sees a flicker of a mage's true spirit within her, a fire that had been dormant until now. He reassures her, explaining that even if she does not realize it yet, she possesses immense magical power, far beyond what she has ever imagined. The reason her larger spells fail is simple: she pours far more magical power into them than necessary, almost recklessly. He further explains that even controlling the amount of magic she uses requires skill she currently lacks. At this stage, successfully casting beginner-level spells is likely impossible for her. However, there is one category of magic she can use without worrying about precise control: special-grade magic. Despite hearing this, Saris remains skeptical. She questions whether she is truly capable of wielding such immense power. She recalls how even the Academy's headmaster, who is widely regarded as an incredibly skilled magician, can barely manage to cast special-grade magic. But Balua points out that this essentially places her on par with the headmaster. He also reveals that he himself can use special-grade magic, assuring her that it is not as rare or unattainable as it seems. He explains that special-grade magic requires an enormous reservoir of magical power, something most magicians simply do not possess. However, for someone like Saris, it should be no issue at all. The conversation overwhelms her. She begins to feel lightheaded, dazed by how quickly everything is unfolding. Still, Balua decides that there is no need for elaborate preparation. They will begin training immediately. He insists that he will teach her a special-grade spell right away. He argues that, for her, casting such magic will be no different than casting a beginner-level spell. Saris, however, is far from convinced. She cannot shake the feeling that she is being dragged into something beyond her abilities. The idea of learning special-grade magic so suddenly feels overwhelming. To her, special-grade magic is terrifying. Just imagining it makes her uneasy. Balua, sensing her hesitation, explains that the spell she will be casting is called Prominence Gate, a fire-based special-grade spell that is relatively easy to handle. He compares it to casting a fire spear, stating that the process is essentially the same. Saris remains doubtful. She cannot believe that it is as simple as he makes it sound. Even so, she takes a deep breath. Despite her lingering uncertainty, she steels herself. She pushes aside her self-doubt and resolves to try. Balua watches with satisfaction, pleased to see her determination. Before attempting anything, Saris hesitates and asks if the spell she is about to cast could end up destroying everything around her. Balua confirms her fears, explaining that under normal circumstances, a special-grade spell like this could indeed obliterate everything in its path. However, to address this concern, he confidently points to himself and instructs her to direct the spell at him. He assures her that there is no need to worry about what happens afterward. Saris, trusting his words, decides to follow his plan. As she steps into position, Balua observes how composed she seems compared to before. Hearing his remark, Saris admits that she is already so overwhelmed that if she were to feel any more surprised, she might pass out. She vividly recalls how he single-handedly defeated the monsters earlier. That memory alone fuels her belief in him. Now that she has faith in him, she closes her eyes and focuses. She calls upon her inner magic, summoning an enormous spell. A massive gate of fire materializes on the ground. The creaking of the gate echoes as it slowly opens, releasing a roaring torrent of searing hot flames. Saris quickly directs the massive inferno straight at Balua. Yet, as the flames surge toward him, he remains unfazed. Calmly, without a hint of concern, he simply snaps his fingers. In an instant, a shimmering barrier encapsulates the raging fireball she unleashed. Saris stands in absolute astonishment. She watches as all of her immense firepower is trapped neatly inside the glowing magical shield. Balua, still composed, effortlessly launches the blazing sphere into the sky, ensuring that no collateral damage occurs. With that, he turns to Saris and delivers the news: she has successfully cast a special-grade spell. He emphasizes that her belief in him made this possible. Her trust not only allowed her to unleash such powerful magic but also ensured that no harm came to anyone or anything in the process. Saris' cheeks flush slightly as she questions him about his true identity. However, Balua simply brushes aside the question, making it clear that who he is does not matter. What matters is her success. She has achieved something extraordinary, and she should be proud of herself. For the first time, Saris feels genuine pride in her abilities. She can hardly believe that she has successfully cast a special-grade spell, especially after struggling so much with even beginner magic. She has always thought of herself as a failure, but now, that belief begins to shift. Balua watches her silently, recognizing that her potential exceeds even his expectations. With the overall decline in magical skill, this era is in desperate need of properly trained mages. At that moment, he turns to Saris and asks if she would like to become his disciple. The sudden offer catches her completely off guard. She hesitates, stunned by his words, but Balua calmly reassures her that he is serious. He explains that, out of everyone he has encountered at this academy, she is the most talented. Of course, he acknowledges that she has every right to refuse. However, he promises that if she chooses to become his disciple, he will train her to become one of the greatest mages in the world. He asks her what her decision will be. The answer is obvious from the start, and as expected, she responds just as he had hoped. It astounds her how, in just a single day, Balua has completely transformed her. She has no reason to refuse such a tempting offer laid out before her. With newfound determination, she asks him to take care of her. This time, instead of addressing him by name, she calls him master. Later, the two of them find themselves wandering through the forest. Balua, confused, wonders why she has brought them to this place of all locations. Timidly, Saris reveals the reason. Her practical magic grades had been so poor that she was assigned an extra task. The mention of an extra assignment catches Balua off guard. Saris explains that she must reach an altar deep within the forest and channel her magic into a device. That is all she has to do. As she thinks back, she recalls that Balua had been given the same assignment. She also remembers being told to complete it as soon as possible. However, due to the recent monster attacks, she had been too afraid to come alone. Balua understands her hesitation but reassures her that now that her master is with her, she has nothing to fear. Even so, he remains uncertain why the academy would send students who cannot even cast basic spells into a place like this. There is always the possibility that they could stumble upon a monster too dangerous for them to handle, which could ultimately cost them their lives. Saris explains that everything has been fine so far. Most of the monsters within the academy's borders, or rather, within the kingdom's borders, are weak and do not attack humans. This news surprises Balua greatly. He finds it astonishing that there are monsters that do not prey on humans. In his time, such creatures were extremely rare. Saris then mentions that, according to reports, there is a particularly dangerous giant lizard lurking near the academy's hill. The mention of a giant lizard stirs Barua's memory. It is the same monster he had already defeated. To think that such a weak creature is considered dangerous in this era baffles him. He recalls a time when this land was filled with much stronger monsters. However, if those powerful creatures once roamed here, it must have been over 1,000 years ago. Thanks to the legendary magic sword saint who defeated the Demon King, the demons had retreated from the kingdom. As a result, the monsters that had grown stronger under their influence had begun to weaken. Saris agrees with his assessment, or at least, she acknowledges that this is what people believe happened. Now, everything starts making sense to Balua. With the demons gone, the monsters grew weaker. The battles against demons and monsters decreased, and in turn, human combat skills deteriorated. Although the explanation seems logical, one thing still bothers him. The monsters he had encountered during class were unlike anything he had seen in this region before. This means those creatures were not native to this land. However, despite their unusual presence, they were still weaklings. Suddenly, the sound of low, guttural growls reaches their ears. Trouble has arrived. At first glance, the creatures before them appear far more dangerous than the ones from earlier. Their twisted, unnatural forms make them seem far more aggressive. Balua cannot help but feel a flicker of excitement at the sight. He turns to Saris and asks if these monsters are also considered harmless. One look at her frightened expression is enough to give him the answer. Before the monsters can close in, they foolishly lunge at Balua. Without a shred of effort, he obliterates them with a single flick of his hand. For the next wave, he unsheathes his sword, cutting through them with precise, fluid strikes. His blade moves effortlessly, leaving nothing but lifeless bodies in its wake. After dispatching the creatures, he turns to Saris and reports that monsters attacking humans are beginning to appear everywhere. This revelation unsettles her. As far as she knows, most people at the academy have little to no combat experience against dangerous monsters. If the attacks continue to increase, it is only a matter of time before there are casualties. Balua, on the other hand, finds the situation oddly satisfying. He is even more pleased that he decided to take on a disciple. With proper training, at least one mage will gain real combat experience. As they continue speaking, more and more monsters begin to swarm the area. Balua smirks, explaining that thanks to Saris, he now has the perfect opportunity to train a mage in real battle. By now, judging from the fear in her eyes, it is safe to assume that Saris has started to regret becoming his disciple. Without hesitation, Balua steps back, leaving her to face the oncoming monsters alone. He assures her that these creatures are merely slightly aggressive opponents, ideal for a disciple's first combat training. Saris stands frozen, utterly terrified. However, before panic can fully consume her, Balua firmly orders her to calm down. He reminds her that if she can tap into her true power, monsters like these will be nothing more than trivial obstacles. After a moment of hesitation, his words finally ignite a fire within her, both figuratively and literally. Summoning her magic, she channels her energy into Prominence Gate. Once again, The gate of hell materializes before her. Flames roar to life, consuming the monsters in an instant. Within moments, nothing remains of them but ashes. Her achievement fills her with excitement, lighting her up like a child stepping into a grand festival. The realization that she has just defeated monsters leaves her in awe. Balua acknowledges her success, feeling proud of the disciple he has chosen to train. He reminds her that if she continues improving her control over magic, she will gain real combat experience. With better mastery, she will be able to use spells beyond advanced magic. That, he says, should be her first goal. As he lectures her, a sudden movement from behind catches his attention. Some monsters have latched onto him. However, without even turning around, he knocks the eager creature away with a single punch. The remaining monsters are swiftly dealt with in a barrage of rapid strikes, and within seconds, they are all down. Only one remains. This last creature meets an even worse fate, getting launched into a tree by a brutal kick. But this was more than just a fight. It was a lesson, a demonstration for his disciple. He explains that, as a mage, she should have a few more tricks beyond just magic. Saris, of course, finds the idea impossible, unable to imagine herself fighting with her bare hands. However, Balua clarifies that even mages can benefit from hand-to-hand combat. He insists that having such skills can prove invaluable in emergencies. Saris, now humbled by her master's wisdom, quickly acknowledges the importance of his words. With the area now cleared, Balua resumes walking ahead. Meanwhile, Saris remains behind for a moment, overwhelmed by everything she has just witnessed. Although she expected her master to be exceptional, he continues to exceed her expectations, shattering any previous assumptions she had about him. From this point forward, Balua makes a decision. He will leave all future battles to Saris. He assures her that he will handle any stray threats that might appear but expects her to fight. As they continue their journey, distant explosions echo through the forest, a result of their previous battles. Eventually, they arrive at their intended destination, the stone altar. Saris, now visibly exhausted, struggles to stand upright. Balua, noticing her state, asks if she is all right, but it is clear that she is completely drained. After repeatedly tapping into her power, she has pushed herself beyond her limits. So far, she has used advanced magic 5 times, an impressive feat by any standard. But to Balua, these are rookie numbers. He questions her exhaustion, wondering how she could be so drained after casting only 5 spells. Saris feels genuine disappointment at his inability to understand her fatigue. Still, despite everything they have been through, a sense of pride lingers within her. They have made it to the stone altar. Now, all that remains is for them to channel their magic into the device, and their assignment will be complete. However, completing the task is not going to be as simple as they initially thought. Balua has already sensed an ominous presence lurking nearby, and it does not take long for the creature to emerge from the bushes. The beast is enormous, far more imposing than any monster they have encountered so far. With a single deep growl, the monster generates a powerful blast of air pressure. The force is so strong that Saris stumbles backward, losing her balance. Before she can hit the ground, Balua quickly catches her. Even he acknowledges the gravity of the situation. Just by observing this creature, he can tell that even mages from 1,000 years ago would have struggled against such a beast. The monster does not hesitate, it charges toward them at incredible speed. Balua instantly determines that this is not a fight Saris can handle. Stepping forward, sword in hand, he meets the creature head-on. After exchanging a series of rapid blows, the monster suddenly retreats. Without missing a beat, it begins channeling its own magic, causing debris from the ground to rise into the air. Balua finds this fascinating. The idea that this monster can not only use magic but also weaponize its surroundings is unexpected. As the debris hurls toward him, Balua effortlessly dodges with remarkable speed. While maneuvering, he calls out to his disciple, urging her to run while he holds the monster off. To his shock, instead of running, Saris is already standing her ground. Her hell gate has begun to manifest, flames roaring to life as she prepares to unleash another devastating attack. Although she is unsure whether she can defeat the monster with this spell, she refuses to back down. For a brief moment, fear grips her, and the thought of running away crosses her mind. But she pushes aside her doubt. She refuses to look weak in front of her master. The monster shifts its attention toward her and launches the floating debris in her direction. Before the attack can reach her, Balua leaps into action, slashing through the oncoming projectiles with his sword. With the path now cleared, Saris steadies herself. With a single commanding gesture, she unleashes her massive firestorm. The activation of Prominence Gate summons a fiery column that engulfs the monster entirely. The beast is consumed by the raging inferno, reduced to nothing but ashes. As the flames die down, Saris stands in stunned silence, barely able to believe what she has just done. Balua, watching her performance, feels proud. He tells her that no one will ever be able to call her a failure again. However, despite this victory, Saris raises a concern. While her strength has undoubtedly improved, she reminds him that no one from the academy actually witnessed her attack. As a result, they will likely dismiss her claims of defeating such a powerful monster. Balua acknowledges her point. He admits that it is true that no one saw what happened here. However, he reassures her that one thing is now certain: her reputation will improve massively from this point forward. No one will ever be able to underestimate her again. Speaking of recognition, he then shifts the topic to the magic transmission device. He explains how it works. It channels magic back to the academy, allowing the instructors to identify the student responsible for completing the task. The traces of magical energy left behind in the transmission will serve as proof of completion. Then, he poses a curious question. He asks Saris what she thinks would happen if special grade or advanced level magic were to strike the device. A realization suddenly dawns on her. She quickly deduces that all of her immense magical power from the recent attack will be transmitted directly to the academy. She is absolutely correct. Balua confirms her suspicion. And the results are immediate. The magic transmission device does not simply absorb her magic. Instead, it overloads, erupting in a violent explosion of volcanic flames. Saris stands frozen, looking as if she has just seen a ghost. Meanwhile, Balua, completely unfazed, watches the scene unfold with amusement. Because of her terrifying display of power, it is inevitable she will be hearing from the academy soon. Fast forwarding to the moment of reckoning, the teacher responsible for monitoring the transmission traces quickly identifies the source of the magic. Now standing before her instructor, Saris struggles to maintain her composure. The old man scolds her, stating that there is simply no justifiable excuse for destroying the academy's sacred monument. He then speaks about the legendary sword saint and wonders aloud how he would have reacted to such recklessness. What the teacher does not realize, however, is that the sword saint himself is standing right there. And at this very moment, Balua can only smirk to himself, internally responding that the sword saint probably wouldn't care about something as trivial as a monument. The teacher, despite his frustrations, has no grounds to fail Saris. He emphasizes that, in the end, the magic was hers, and she has rightfully earned recognition for her abilities. Hearing this, Saris feels relieved and satisfied. At the same time, the teacher shifts his focus to Direa Westgarden. Until now, he has been nothing but a failure. Yet somehow, both he and Saris have shown an incredible surge in magical ability. The teacher cannot comprehend what could have happened between them to cause such a drastic transformation. Balua, unfazed, argues that Saris has always been the same as she was before. The only difference is that her immense talent, overlooked by the academy for so long, has finally been acknowledged by him. At this point, the teacher is at a loss. He cannot figure out who this boy really is. Then, a realization dawns on Balua. He had been given the same assignment as Saris, yet he never had the chance to complete it since she had shattered the magic transmission device. The teacher, however, does not feel the need to test him. He is already well aware of Balua's abilities and, without hesitation, grants him a free pass. He openly admits that the outcome would have been no different even if Balua had taken the test himself. Before the teacher can say anything further, both Balua and Saris quickly make their exit, eager to witness the public's reaction. Balua walks through the academy with ease, carrying himself like a king among students. Around him, whispers spread rapidly. The talk of the day is none other than the magician responsible for stopping the monster invasion. Word has even spread about Saris and her extraordinary magical output. However, many still associate her with the incident involving the destruction of the sacred monument. Listening to the conversations, Balua feels a sense of satisfaction. The rumors have spread exactly as he expected. Saris, on the other hand, is far less amused. Her experience with the academy makes her feel uneasy about the attention. Meanwhile, behind them, a gathering of female students surrounds a certain individual, one who stands out from the crowd. The silver-haired young man, clearly popular, greets Direa with polite familiarity. Barua, uninterested in formalities, asks about his identity. However, before he can receive an answer, Saris impatiently pulls him aside and provides the missing information. The student in question is Flem Riker, a third-year upperclassman and a renowned genius swordsman. However, Flem does not approach them simply for pleasantries. He has a specific reason for seeking out Barua. His request is straightforward: he wishes to fight him. Barua, confused by the sudden challenge, wonders why this request has come out of nowhere. As it turns out, the Supreme Swordsmanship Council has taken an interest in the recent events surrounding the monster attack. Their investigation has revealed that a magician was responsible for saving the academy. Unsurprisingly, they are not pleased with this discovery. Their response? To send one of their strongest warriors to challenge the magician in question and prove that swordsmen remain the superior force. Even Flem finds their reasoning ridiculous. He acknowledges that the council seems more concerned with maintaining their authority than focusing on the bigger picture. Barua, meeting this challenge head-on, offers an apology, before foolishly asking what exactly the Supreme Swordsmanship Council is. His careless question shocks Saris. She is beginning to realize just how much of Direa's memory seems to be slipping away. Still, she takes it upon herself to explain. She describes how both the Supreme Swordsmanship Council and the Central Magic Institute are the two most influential institutions in the country. The first is an organization that governs every swordsman in the nation. The second is a governing body that holds authority over magicians, responsible for nurturing their growth. Both factions wield considerable power, yet they are constantly at odds with each other. Barua, curious about their ongoing conflict, asks for more details. He learns that both organizations share the same ambition, to prove that their respective discipline is superior to the other. To him, such a debate seems childish. The effectiveness of magic or swordsmanship depends entirely on the circumstances. Saris agrees, adding that because of this conflict, swordsmen and magicians have developed deep-seated resentment toward each other. And so, this brings them back to Flem, who has remained patient throughout the conversation. He repeats his request for a duel, stating that accepting would be a favor to the swordsman. Without hesitation, Barua agrees. His immediate response shocks Flem, who had expected resistance. But for Barua, this duel serves a greater purpose. He intends to use it as an opportunity to gauge the state of modern swordsmanship and compare it to his own era. Still, given how this era's magicians have proven weak, he does not have high expectations for swordsmen either. As they walk toward a suitable location for the duel, Barua casually inquires about Flem's reputation. Why exactly is he called a genius swordsman? Flem, however, does not put much stock in the title. He believes that it overestimates his abilities. He simply has more passion for swordsmanship than most. Saris, stepping in again, fills in the missing details. She clarifies that Flem is widely regarded as the strongest swordsman in the academy. Even for Direa, she warns, this will be a difficult match. She urges him to take the duel seriously. But Barua remains unconcerned. Without even breaking a sweat, he confidently declares that his strength does not merely stand at the top of the academy, it stands at the top of the world. With that, the scene transitions to Burrito Academy Arena, where both fighters take their positions. Barua is mildly impressed by the arena's grand design. The academy has an entire battle coliseum built within its walls. As he glances toward the stands, his gaze lands on a familiar face, Saris. His ever-enthusiastic disciple cheers for him, her excitement evident. Unfortunately, her moment of support is short-lived. Flem's loyal fangirls quickly shut her down, drowning out her cheers with their own. The genius swordsman makes his choice. He will use a wooden sword for the match and advises Barua to use magic freely. However, Barua surprises him by expressing that he has no interest in casting a single spell. Instead, he picks up the wooden sword and clarifies that this is not meant as an insult to Flem's abilities. He simply has complete confidence in his own swordsmanship. Surrounded by a wave of blue aura, Barua declares that the difference in their strengths will be revealed through their blades alone. Intrigued, Flem finds himself looking forward to witnessing the swordsmanship of a magician. With both fighters ready, the countdown begins. As soon as it ends, Flem rushes forward, launching a heavy attack meant to overpower his opponent immediately. However, Barua effortlessly blocks it, much to Flem's shock. One swing after another, every strike Flem unleashes proves useless. His opponent deflects each one with ease. Determined to break through, Flem increases his speed, unleashing a flurry of rapid attacks. Yet, by the time his assault is over, Balua remains standing, completely unharmed, staring at him with unwavering confidence. Flem's mind begins to spiral. He cannot comprehend how someone can excel in both magic and swordsmanship at such a high level. He charges forward for another powerful slash, but once again, Balua deflects it without difficulty. By now, Flem is convinced. This level of swordplay is comparable to the legendary sword saint himself. Meanwhile, Balua is thoroughly impressed with Flem's performance. He admits that it has been a long time since he has enjoyed a fight this much. However, as he examines his weapon, he realizes that his wooden sword has begun to crack from the impact of Flem's last strike. With a calm expression, Balua decides to stop holding back. He is going to fight at full strength now. Using his magic, he reforges the wooden sword, gripping it with renewed determination. A smile spreads across his face as he prepares to continue the match. He hopes that their sparring session will be enjoyable for both of them. Without hesitation, he rushes forward with incredible speed, launching an attack that Flem barely manages to block. The force alone causes Flem to lose his footing. But Balua does not give him a moment to recover. He immediately follows up with another strike. Flem manages to dodge once more, stepping back to regain his balance. Meanwhile, Balua, still amused, refers to him as the genius swordsman and presses forward again. Their swords clash, the force of their strikes sending shockwaves through the arena. Even as he goes all out, Balua is surprised to find that Flem is still keeping up. He lunges for another attack, but Flem swiftly jumps into the air, repositioning himself to strike from behind. Balua acknowledges that Flem would have been worthy of the genius title even 1,000 years ago. Flem nearly lands his hit, but Balua easily blocks it, shocking the audience. Observing his weapon, Balua notes that his fragile wooden sword is on the verge of breaking. Flem, catching his breath, admits that Balua possesses insane strength. He has never seen a sword crack from impact like this before. With this realization, he finally acknowledges that he misjudged Balua's abilities. Filled with regret, he retracts his previous doubts and openly accepts that Balua is an excellent swordsman. Balua, unbothered, brushes it off with a smile. He finds Flem's sincerity refreshing and considers it an admirable trait. Flem expresses his gratitude and, as a result of their intense battle, Balua allows him to drop formalities and call him by his first name. However, with a teasing smirk, he reminds Flem that he is still just a junior. Flem smiles awkwardly but accepts the remark in good spirits. Recognizing that their weapons are reaching their limits, he suggests that they finish the fight before their swords completely fall apart. Balua, excited, readily agrees. Flem points his sword forward, declaring that he will challenge Balua with every fiber of his being. Without hesitation, he unleashes his unyielding flash, producing a series of rapid, violent slashes meant to overwhelm his opponent. Despite the sheer force of the attack, Balua remains unfazed. He acknowledges that this technique is far beyond a student's level, but for him, dodging it is effortless. If he could not read such attacks, he would not be worthy of the Sword Saint title. Within seconds, he closes the distance and effortlessly disarms Flem, securing his victory. The match ends with Flem humbled. Acknowledging his defeat, he tosses aside the wooden sword and smiles genuinely, satisfied that he was able to fight against the Sword Saint himself. As soon as the match concludes, Saris excitedly rushes toward Balua, praising him for his incredible performance. He thanks her for the support, but his amusement quickly fades as he hears the other girls in the audience fawning over the swordsman he just defeated. Flem's devoted fans, on the verge of tears, reassure him that they still consider him the best, even though he just lost to Balua. Annoyed, Balua simply watches them leave before turning his attention back to Flem. Flem extends his hand in gratitude, thanking him for the intense sparring session. Balua shakes his hand, and with that, they officially become friends. However, a lingering concern remains. Balua asks if it is really fine for Flem to lose like this, considering that he was likely ordered by the Supreme Swordsmanship Council to defeat him. Flem confirms his suspicion. He explains that the council will no doubt be furious when they learn that he lost to a magician, especially one capable of wielding both magic and a sword. With a carefree expression, he assumes that he will probably be expelled for this failure. Balua, scratching his head, finds the entire situation ridiculous. He expresses his frustration with the constant division between magic and swordsmanship, calling it foolish. He begins to wonder why there has never been a faction that embraces both disciplines instead of forcing them to remain separate. As this thought takes hold, an idea suddenly sparks in his mind. Saris, noticing his expression, immediately senses trouble and anxiously asks what he is thinking about. Without hesitation, Balua casually announces that he is going to create his own faction. Saris is left speechless. Flem, intrigued, asks again to confirm if Balua is serious. Balua affirms his decision. He believes that whether someone chooses magic or swordsmanship should not matter. He is determined to establish a faction that welcomes both. A new day begins. Balua wakes up and, while checking his reflection in the mirror, confirms that he is still inhabiting the same body. It has been several days since his reincarnation, and he highly doubts that the original soul of Direa Westgarden will ever return. With that thought in mind, he prepares for the day ahead and leaves his house. As he finishes his breakfast, he realizes something. Since waking up after 1,000 years, he has never had a moment to rest. Every day, new chaos unfolds. Even on his first day at the academy, simply finding his dorm had been a hassle. Before heading to class, he takes note of how busy the students seem. From what he has learned from Saris, monsters have been acting strangely ever since his rebirth. They continue to mutate and grow more aggressive for reasons unknown. This realization prompts him to move quickly. He needs to devise a plan to uncover the cause behind these strange occurrences and eliminate the threat as soon as possible. However, he knows that the only way to truly accomplish this goal is by uniting the magicians and swordsmen of this era. If he wants to rebuild the world's combat strength, he must start from the ground up. As he walks toward his class, he overhears the students talking about him. The protagonist is tired of the endless and foolish conflicts between the magic and swordsmanship councils. Frustrated by their senseless rivalry, he resolves to establish his own faction. As Direa walks, he suddenly halts, his expression shifting to irritation. He overhears others whispering about what he did with the teacher. The murmurs spread among the students, yet none dare to confront him. Fear keeps them silent, making way for him without question. A sense of regret starts creeping into him. As he steps into the classroom, Karis greets him warmly and invites him to sit beside her. With a look of annoyance, he takes a seat, his mood only worsening as he notices students gossiping about him, even within the classroom walls. The students murmur that creating a faction combining both magic and swordsmanship is nearly impossible. Their doubt grates on him until his patience finally shatters. He rises abruptly and demands that they all be quiet. Yet, they ignore his outburst, acting as if nothing happened. Frustration boils within him, but he forces himself to calm down. Karis reassures him that not all students are as bad as they seem, urging him not to lose heart. She recalls his actions and expresses her belief that he is doing all of this simply to stand out. The teacher enters, cutting through the tension, and announces that they will resume the lectures that had been interrupted by the sudden monster attacks a few days prior. He expresses his hope that everyone will do their best to catch up and begins the lesson. He starts by explaining the significance of two major organizations, the Central Magic Academy and the Supreme Swordsmanship Council, both of which wield enormous influence over society and even determine an individual's social status. Direa finds himself feeling miserable at the thought of learning about this topic first thing in the morning. Yet, the teacher continues, elaborating that since all of them are magicians, they are affiliated with the Central Magic Academy, which is renowned for its members' extraordinary abilities and talents. He explains that the country grants these magicians special privileges due to their high status. As the lesson drones on, Direa begins to grasp why both magicians and swordsmen are so highly revered by society. Their strength commands admiration, and their influence ensures that no one dares to challenge them out of fear of retaliation. Despite understanding the weight of this power imbalance, he refuses to be discouraged. After class, he wastes no time and starts inviting students to join his faction. Karis, standing beside him, does her best to support him despite feeling embarrassed by the attention they are attracting. Just in case, he asks her if she is truly willing to be part of this, knowing that the Central Magic Academy will inevitably come after them. Karis reassures him without hesitation, explaining that if he had not trained her, she would have already been expelled as a failure. With a bright expression, she declares that she is determined to follow him no matter the consequences. Her passionate words move Direa, his eyes welling up with emotion. Still, Karis voices her concern about Flem's presence, mentioning that he is also involved. She pushes Flem away slightly, worried that being associated with them will harm his status as a student. However, Flem remains unconcerned and instead approaches other students, eager to spread word of the new faction. Flem acknowledges their worry but assures them that he does not care about authority any more than they do. He also recognizes that punishment is inevitable after his loss against Direa, but since he has already failed to meet expectations, he has no hesitation in acting independently. Direa feels reassured, yet doubt lingers. He questions whether the three of them alone can accomplish anything meaningful. An idea sparks in his mind. With excitement, he suggests that Flem simply command his group of admirers to join them. Karis admits that it is a clever plan, but she reminds him of the dangers they face. She warns that getting caught in the struggle between the two major organizations could ruin lives. She urges him to be more careful and thoughtful before taking action. Understanding her concerns, Direa apologizes. At that moment, an unfamiliar man appears and asks if this group truly belongs to Flem. Direa, innocent in his assumption, guesses that the newcomers must be students interested in joining his faction. However, the man refutes this immediately, accusing them of damaging the Academy's reputation with their reckless actions. He then reveals that they have come under direct orders from the headmaster to seize them. Without hesitation, the men grab both Direa and Karis, dragging them away. As they struggle, Direa tells Karis not to worry. Meanwhile, another man restraining Flem questions why he is involved in such a foolish endeavor. Though irritated, Daria's expression shifts to one of excitement. Rather than seeing this as a setback, he considers it an opportunity, one that will finally allow him to meet the Academy's leader face to face. Inside the headmaster's room, Direa and Flem remain composed, while Karis' face reveals clear signs of nervousness. The headmaster expresses his gratitude for their presence and introduces himself as Rudolphin Garfwelm, stating that he is the headmaster of the Academy. Direa notices the rings on the old man's fingers and assumes he must be a magician. With confidence, he asks whether the headmaster is angry about whatever he is up to. This question immediately provokes another man in the room, who shouts at him to be quiet and to stop showing such disrespect. However, the headmaster remains calm and explains that he is fully aware of the ongoing conflicts between swordsmanship and magic. He wants Direa to grasp the situation properly, so he provides an example, stating that swordsmen and magicians do not naturally mix. Yet, despite this, both factions have managed to maintain peace for now. The headmaster emphasizes that preserving this harmony is crucial, but he believes that Daria's actions are disrupting the balance within the Academy. Furthermore, he warns that these disturbances could extend beyond the school and affect the world itself. He labels Direa as dangerous, but Direa disagrees. He asserts that magic and swordsmanship are merely tools, nothing more than means to fight monsters and protect humanity. In his view, it is absurd to replace such simple tools with authority-driven organizations and then fear challenging them. Hearing such bold words, the teachers struggle to maintain their composure. Before they can react, the door suddenly bursts open, and a student stumbles inside, completely out of breath. The teachers, surprised by the interruption, immediately demand an explanation. The first-year student, in a state of distress, informs them that his classmates, who were in the swamp just outside the Academy, are under attack by massive monsters. His words send a shockwave through the room. He continues, explaining that he somehow managed to escape with his life, but his classmates are still trapped, running for their lives in a desperate attempt to survive. He pleads with the teachers to help them. Without hesitation, Direa turns away and begins heading for the door. One of the headmaster's subordinates moves to stop him, demanding to know why he is leaving. With a serious expression, Direa states the obvious: he is going to help the first years. His friends feel relieved by his determination, but the subordinate insists that he should stop. He argues that an inexperienced student like him will only interfere with the efforts of the trained teachers, who are already preparing to handle the situation. At this, Direa no longer holds back. He boldly declares that there is no one in the entire Academy stronger than him. Frustrated by his arrogance, the teacher orders him to stay put and reflect on his words instead of boasting. Direa, now reaching the limits of his patience, responds sharply. He states that if they are more concerned about maintaining authority than ensuring the safety of students, then they are unfit to be called teachers. The entire room falls into stunned silence. Unexpectedly, Rima steps forward and acknowledges that he understands their frustration with Daria's behavior. However, he firmly states that Daria truly is the strongest person in the academy, surpassing even the teachers. His claim leaves the other teachers in disbelief. The headmaster, intrigued, directly asks if Rima means to say that Daria is even stronger than himself. Rima hesitates for a moment but ultimately confirms it. The room is thrown into further shock when the headmaster rises from his chair. Without hesitation, he bows and formally requests Daria to go and rescue the first-year students. The other teachers struggle to process this unexpected turn of events. The headmaster, however, remains resolute. He acknowledges that the monsters are growing unnaturally strong and admits that they need Daria's strength to handle the crisis. Daria, slightly taken aback, had assumed that the headmaster held some grudge against him. But the old man clarifies that his stance had simply followed the broader perspective of the academy. From his personal view, he holds no hatred toward Daria. Hearing this, a smile forms on Daria's face, and his friends share in his relief. The headmaster takes full responsibility for the decision, assuring them that skilled teachers will also be sent as backup. He advises Daria not to push himself too hard. With everything settled, Daria confidently leaves, while the teachers remain in silent astonishment. One of them quietly wonders why the headmaster made such a decision. In response, the old man states that it is time for the foolish conflicts between magic and swordsmanship to finally come to an end. Outside the academy, Daria and his friends reach the swamp. Flem recalls that the monster they are pursuing is a giant-like creature. Spotting massive footprints in the mud, they easily track its direction. Daria acknowledges that finding the footprints is useful, but before he can say more, he suddenly draws his sword. Without warning, several monsters leap out of the water, aiming for Karis, who is momentarily distracted. Both Flem and Daria react instantly, stepping in to protect her. They advise her to remain vigilant. Flem takes the lead, positioning himself to shield them both. As the monsters charge at him, he effortlessly blocks their attacks and slices through them with just a few swift slashes. He stays focused, knowing they must not waste any time in reaching the trapped students. Karis watches in amazement at his skill. However, Daria is unsurprised, stating that such ability is to be expected from a genius. Flem, slightly embarrassed by the nickname, reminds himself that his strength is nowhere near Daria's. Another monster lunges at them, but Flem swiftly eliminates it without any difficulty. He declares his determination to do everything he can to save the academy's students. Daria, amused by his confidence, casually remarks to Karis that Flem looks unusually cool. He then quickly refocuses, remembering their mission. Without further delay, the group follows the trail of footprints deeper into the swamp. As they advance, Daria becomes suspicious. He wonders why classes were being held in such a dangerous area. The monsters they just faced may have been easy for their group to handle, but ordinary students would stand no chance against them. Flem provides an explanation. He states that the swamp contains a rare substance known as miracle water, which, when used in weapon crafting, produces exceptionally high-quality equipment. Every year, both the swordsmanship and magic departments conduct a joint class, competing to see who can obtain the water first. Flem assumes that Daria must have participated in this event in previous years, but Daria has no recollection of it. Choosing not to dwell on it, he moves on. Flem further explains that although teachers restrict students to the safer areas near the entrance, greed often drives them deeper into the swamp in search of more miracle water. Daria understands and speculates that this time, something must have gone terribly wrong. The monsters have been growing abnormally strong, making the situation far more dangerous than usual. As they continue rushing forward, an army of swamp monsters suddenly emerges and begins pursuing them. Karis, feeling anxious, voices her concern about the sheer number of enemies. Despite her warning, Daria sprints ahead, unfazed. With a confident smile, he assures them to wait just a moment. In a blur of motion, he slashes through multiple monsters with ease. A surge of magic follows as he unleashes a powerful blast, wiping out several more in an instant. Without slowing down, he continues cutting through the monstrous horde, each strike executed with precision. The battle ends in a brilliant display of skill, leaving nothing but the remains of the defeated creatures. Elsewhere, the injured students flee desperately, questioning why they are being pursued by such a massive monster. Their escape leads them to a dead end, leaving them with no place left to run. As the monster closes in, fear takes hold of them, rendering them motionless. The terrifying creature moves forward, raising a strange hammer to strike a female student. Just as the attack is about to land, Direa arrives in time to intercept it. With his sword, he blocks the hammer's blow, saving the students from their impending doom. The students stare in disbelief as Direa confronts the monster with unwavering determination. He resolves to put an end to the destruction it has caused. Fortunately, despite the chaos, all the students and teachers involved have sustained only minor injuries. With no casualties to worry about, Direa smiles confidently, knowing he only needs to eliminate the source of the problem. He prepares to settle things, but the monster roars and swings its giant hammer wildly. The sheer force of its attacks leaves everyone stunned. They watch in awe as Direa holds his ground effortlessly. Even in the midst of this dire situation, one of the students mocks the others, proclaiming that swordsmanship is clearly superior since mages are useless in fights like this. However, upon hearing such arrogant words, Direa sheathes his sword and warns the student against making such claims. Ignoring the monster for a moment, he turns to the group and states that both swordsmanship and magic are equally valuable. It does not matter which path they choose, as long as they use their abilities effectively. Before he can continue, the monster nearly lands an attack from behind. Without hesitation, Direa unleashes his magic, effortlessly repelling the creature. His display of power leaves the students in shock. He then explains that while they are still in the process of learning, they should embrace both swordsmanship and magic to work together in overcoming challenges. He turns back to the arrogant student and commands him to watch carefully. He intends to demonstrate how true combat is fought using both skills. He believes that before anyone asserts authority, they should first strive to improve themselves. Finishing his explanation, Direa calls for his senior to join him. In response, Flem suddenly appears behind the monster, delivering a powerful, well-placed strike in a spectacular fashion. The attack lands, causing blood to gush from the monster's body. Enraged, the creature retaliates with even fiercer attacks. Direa points out that even a skilled fighter like Flem is struggling to dodge such relentless assaults. Without delay, he channels his magic and conjures glowing purple ropes that wrap around the monster's massive frame. His actions serve as another lesson to the students, demonstrating how the fusion of swordsmanship and magic can lead to victory. With the monster restrained, Flem seizes the opportunity to go all out. He unleashes a flurry of rapid, precise slashes, each strike cutting deeper until the monster finally collapses. As the beast falls lifeless to the ground, Direa takes a moment to reinforce his lesson, ensuring the students understand the importance of cooperation and adaptability. Meanwhile, Karis arrives and informs them that she has completed treating the injured. With everyone stable, the remaining students and teachers begin evacuating the swamp. Direa thanks her, and the group prepares to leave. Karis examines the fallen creature and asks for confirmation that this was indeed the giant monster they were after. Flem affirms her suspicion, prompting her to recall a legend about the swamp. She speaks of an old tale describing the Mist Giant, a monstrous entity that once ruled this land. According to the legend, it wielded two enormous clubs and remained undefeated in its domain. However, she admits that she never understood why it was called the Mist Giant in the first place. Direa's expression darkens with unease. Something does not sit right with him. Just as he begins to voice his concern, the monster's body suddenly jerks. Flem immediately calls for caution as the creature starts to rise once again. The students panic while Flem steps forward, urging them to stay behind. This time, the monster reveals a new, terrifying form. It raises two clubs into the air, and a strange purple aura begins to radiate from its body. The sinister energy spreads rapidly, sending a chill through the air. A dense mist spills from the creature's mouth as its eyes glow a deep, menacing red. Flem instinctively shields his face, then realizes the mist is not poisonous, it is merely an obscuring fog. However, as the haze thickens, visibility drops significantly, heightening the group's anxiety. Karis and the others voice their distress, struggling to see anything through the suffocating mist. Despite their growing unease, Direa remains composed. He issues a command, telling them to stay on guard. Suddenly, the massive creature lunges at him, its newfound strength apparent. The force of its attack is overwhelming, Yet Direa barely manages to block it in time. As their eyes lock, the realization settles in: this battle is far from over. Round 2 is about to begin.